So last time we got our project set up, we imported the third person template to give us a robot to chase us, and we put logic into that robot's blueprint for it to actually chase us. And even if we move around, it will continue to chase us forever. Now, one thing you'll notice is that if I shoot at this robot, the shots just phase through him. That's what we're going to be fixing in this video. We are also going to be setting up a way for us to make it very, very easy for things to explode down the road. So to start with, go ahead and double click BPAI to open its blueprint editor. And this time we're going to right click and add a custom event. And we'll just name this custom event die. What this is going to do is this is going to handle everything that needs to die in this game. It's going to handle killing the robots. It's going to handle killing the player. When we make the force field, it's going to handle breaking the force field. It's also going to handle getting rid of the bullets when you shoot the robot. Basically, anything that needs to go away in this game is going to go away because of this event right here. Now, for this event to work, we first need to add some inputs, also known as parameters. And what an input or a parameter is, it's just extra information that's needed before you can actually perform the action that you need to perform. For example, if you're going to throw something, well, the game needs to know what it is that you're going to be throwing. If you're going to pick up an item, the game needs to know what item you're picking up. If something's going to die, the game has to know what's dying. Well, actually, our game needs two pieces of information, but I'll get to that in a second. So the first input, the first parameter, we're going to leave as a Boolean, and we're going to call it explodes. And I'm going to put a question mark after it just as a note to myself. A Boolean is a true or false value. A Boolean will always be either true or false. It will never be anything else. If this is true, if explodes is true, then the object will create an explosion when it goes away. If it's false, then the object will not create an explosion when it goes away. Now, it may be tempting to just set this to true always, but every explosion slows down your game a little bit and makes it more likely to lag out. So we don't really want too many explosions all happening at the same time. This is going to give us a way to control what explodes and what doesn't. Our second input, the second piece of information that our die event needs before it will work properly. So we're going to go ahead and click this plus again. Is we need to know, like I said before, we need to know what's dying. So just type in, we'll just name this object. And this one is not going to be a Boolean. This one is actually going to be an actor. So click Boolean, type in actor, and come down here to where it says actor, and click reference. So when our game tries to kill something, it needs to know two things. Number one, what are we killing? Number two, does it explode? Actually, it asks those questions in the opposite order, but there's a reason that I had it set up this way. It looks a bit cleaner. Alright, so we're going to drag off of this white arrow here. And you can either type in if, which I'm going to do, or type in branch and just click branch and connect red to red. So the very first thing the game is going to do is it's going to check, is this thing supposed to explode when it dies? If so, the game will continue this way. If not, it will continue this way. So let's drag off of true here and type in spawn emitter at location. You don't need to know a whole lot about emitters. Just know an explosion is a type of emitter. And what this block does is exactly what it says it does. It spawns an emitter. In video games, nothing actually happens on its own. Well, very, very few things actually happen on their own. Things don't just explode. When things explode in video games, the game removes that object and then spawns in an explosion. And that's what this box is going to do for us. So the first thing we're going to do here is click this drop down to select what type of emitter we want to spawn in. So click on P_explosion. P is short for particle, which is another word for emitter. So this is going to spawn an explosion here facing this way. Well, where is here? Or rather, where should here be? It should be wherever the object is. So drag off of object, type in get actor, if I can spell. Goodness gracious, I cannot spell. Type in get actor location and click it. And then connect yellow to yellow. The rotation is fine. Auto destroy, make sure it's checked. Otherwise, the explosion we spawn in will not despawn itself when the explosion has finished. Which is bad because that will slow down your game. Alright, so then we want to drag off of this white arrow. So after we've spawned in the explosion, we want to get rid of the object. Because you don't want to... If you're going to kill the robot, right? You don't want the explosion to spawn where the robot is and then the robot to still be there. So to get rid of the robot, just drag off of this white arrow here and type destroy actor. I said get rid of the robot, but this will actually get rid of whatever it is we're trying to kill. So we'll drag off of object and drag that into there. And I am actually going to double click the line here to create what's known as a reroute node, just to make this look a bit neater. Alright. So now, whenever you call this event on something, if that thing is supposed to explode when it dies, which basically just means if it's you or the AI, then what will happen is the game will spawn in an explosion right wherever that thing is, whether that's you or the AI. It'll spawn in the explosion right where the thing that's dying is, and then it will immediately get rid of that thing. So if you kill an AI, it will spawn in an explosion right where the AI is, and then get rid of the AI on that same frame. If it's you, then instead of being where the AI is, it'll just happen where you are. And instead of getting rid of the AI, it'll get rid of you. But now, what if the thing isn't supposed to explode? Well, that's easy. Just drag off of this white here and put that into there. The reason that we're doing that is because no matter whether or not the thing is supposed to explode, we still want to get rid of it. And this is what does that. Because if we don't get rid of things, then things slow down our game. And we don't want that. That is bad. So now we need to actually call this event. When you call an event, you start it. This event tells us what should happen when something dies, it doesn't actually tell us when something dies. So here's what we're going to do. First thing we're going to do, we're going to create a new event. So right click and type in actor begin overlap. And it's the one up at the top. This is not a custom event. This is an event that Unreal Engine has made for us. And this event will trigger anytime two objects overlap. When objects bump into each other, they will either crash like two cars, one will phase through the other like a balloon going through smoke, or they will just completely ignore each other and just phase through each other as though they weren't there. The difference between overlapping and ignoring is that when two objects overlap each other, they trigger overlap events. When they ignore each other, they trigger no events whatsoever. And if it, rather than phasing through each other, they bump into each other, or they crash, or they bounce off of each other, they don't create overlap events, they create hit events. And if you look here, this actor begin overlap event has an input, that being the other actor. This is the thing that's running into us, or rather the thing that's phasing through us, because this is an overlap event. So what we're going to do here is drag off of this blue here and type cast to first person projectile. First person projectile is an actor. Those are the things that we're shooting. And I don't mean shooting the way that we're going to be shooting the robots. I mean, these are the things that are actually coming out of our gun every time we shoot. These are our bullets. We want these to disappear when they hit the robot, so that way it actually looks like we're hitting the robot. So click cast to first person projectile, and this block, what it does is it checks to see, is this thing here, the other actor, this thing here, the other actor, is it a type of first person projectile? This gets a little bit in depth, and I don't really want to go into it now because we're going to cover it more later. But just know that was weirdly worded for a reason. Is this thing a type of first-person projectile? If so, the game will continue here. If not, the game will continue here. And this is a reference to that thing being treated as a first-person projectile rather than whatever we were treating it as before. So what we want to do here is drag off of this top white arrow because we only want this to happen when it's true. So we want to call the die function that we made. Explodes should be false, and the object should be this. Technically you can use this too, but this just looks nicer. So if I compile and save that, now you'll see that when I shoot him, the ball still phased through him. Why is that? The reason is because the BPAI and the first person projectile are not overlapping right now. They're actually ignoring each other. So let's fix that. If I come back to my BPAI blueprint and go over to the left here, you'll see mesh. If you select the mesh over here on the left and then come over to the right for the details panel, you'll see, if you scroll down far enough, there it is, you'll see collision, excuse me. To change this, alright, what we're going to do is we're going to change this from character mesh to custom. This is literally the first one. Alright, change query only to collision enabled. And make sure the object type is a pawn. And make sure it overlaps projectile objects. Also, make sure that generate overlap events is checked. Alright, so compile that. And you'll see now, it's still ignoring it. Alright, it's still, the bullets are still phasing through the robot. The reason for that is because the bullets are not tagged as projectiles. At least I don't think they are. So let's change that. Go back to the main scene here. Click on Content. First Person BP. Blueprints. Make sure you click First Person, not Third Person. First Person BP, Blueprints. And double click on First Person Projectile here. What we're going to do here is click on Collision Component and scroll down. Make sure that Generate Overlap Events is checked, and also make sure that this is set to Custom. Change Query Only to Collision Enabled, and change Pawn from Ignore to Overlap. Compile, and now you can see that when we shoot the enemy robot, the balls do not simply disappear. Alright, so that's all we need to do in terms of being able to shoot the robot. In the next video, we're going to be actually setting up the robot's health. So that way, when we shoot the robot will take damage, and when the robot takes enough damage, the robot will die in a fiery explosion.